Hello everyone, welcome back to CMKL Special Talk 2022. You are with me, Patamapongs or you can call me Far. I will be the moderator for our talk today. Let me tell you a little bit about our talk series. It's a talk that brings noted speakers to campus each year to provide the CMKL community with different perspectives and topics of thought. And right now, our talk journey has come to the series of 2022, and we are at the episode 10 in the topic of navigating the complex world of music rights. And our speaker for today, she is our Program Director of Entertainment Innovation Center, CMKL University. Please welcome Miss Natasha Patamapongs ค่ะสวัสดีค่ะ
Sawadee-ka. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the introduction, and very nice to meet all of you today. And I'm very honored, of course. I've been the program director at the Entertainment Innovation Center, CMKL University, for close to 3 years now. And I have not really given a talk for the CMKL Talk series before, so I'm actually really excited. And if you are in here, please turn on your camera and please, I love to see your face. And if there's any questions, please, raise your hand anytime. You can raise, hey, awesome. All right, thank you so much. So a little about me. My name is Natasha, and yes, I'm the program director. But so for the past 10 to 15 years, I've been I've spent a lot of time in the music industry, both as an artist and, as a record label manager. So I also went to Carnegie Mellon. My master's degree was in entertainment business. And so I have spent quite a lot of my time working with a lot of musicians, artists, and dealing with original compositions and a lot of IPs in the music industry. And I also teach a class at the EIC called Music Publishing and Royalties Decode. And so this is a part of what we do in my class. So yeah, basically, welcome to the talk. Welcome to at the introduction, to the publishing and royalty system within the music industry. If you are within the music industry, you will know that there are different rights that are involving. Music industry is surrounded by music, right? Obviously, music as a composition, music as a master, as the actual piece of music that is recorded. So today we're going to talk about the different rights that's involved with a piece of music. So basically, there are two types of music copyrights, right? So there's the composition rights and there's the master rights. If you're familiar with how the industry works, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because we have limited time, but you must be familiar with record labels. Everybody knows what record labels do. They represent artists and they manage artists and they manage the master recording. When I talk about master recording, we're really talking about the music that is recorded onto a format. Excuse me, I'm very hoarse today. So basically, when you're listening to a piece of music, you're listening to the master, is the recording. However, there's another piece of rights that is involved within, the music itself, which is the composition rights, right? So those composition rights, when we're talking about compositions, we're talking about the song itself. So we're talking about the melody, we're talking about the lyrics, we're talking about what makes the song a song, the structure of the song. And those are represented by publishing companies, right? So what I have on my slide here, so record labels represent master's recording and publishing companies represent original compositions. Yeah, so let's talk about recording rights first. Let's talk about the masters. It's represented by record labels. As many of you are probably familiar with, I would say, this slide is made last year. 80% of the market is controlled by the major labels. And those are, Universal Music Group, Sony Music Entertainment, and Warner Music Group. And of course, under those big three, there are like small sub labels like RCA, Columbia, Blue Note Records, Epic, Nashville, and those make up about, I think maybe less now because independent labels are becoming more active. So I would say around 70% of the market is controlled by these big three. These companies, usually they have publishing companies of their own to represent the rights, but let's focus on the record labels now. So these companies, they usually invest in the artists, they sign artists, they invest in the artists, they put money in the artists to promote and to have them record their original music. And in the end, the result of the product of that is managed by the record label. And then there's the publishing rights. Usually the big companies, as I said, they have publishing companies of their own. For example, Warner Chappell is a publishing company, is a publishing arm under Warner Music Group. These publishing companies, they monetize, they control the song's composition and they monetize the composition itself. For example, they don't really have anything to do with the master recording as the one that you're listening to. But usually you will deal with publishing rights when you want to cover the song, like when you want to take the song, when you want to adapt the lyrics, you want to adapt the original lyrics, the original melodies. Those, if you want to cover those or like use those for any other projects, like maybe put those, like use that and like put it in a different set, that's when you would be contacting the publishing companies. And departments within publishing companies, they're just like any other companies, so there will be like A&R, there'll be like royalty administration, business affairs, and excuse me, my dog. Welcome to the work from home environment. Okay, let's continue. So yes, that's basically, those are the departments within the publishing companies. And the main role of the publisher is they promote the song itself. And they will actually, a very good publishing company will actually reach out to, for example, like theater companies and movie studios, and work with them to have like the original compositions being used in those, within those setup, those formats. I just basically covered this slide. So basically when you're going over, when you're gonna, when you're gonna deal with a publisher, if you're an artist, and for example, I'm a jazz singer, and if I'm going to cover a song, a jazz standard that is not yet in the public domain, I have to contact a publishing company, and then I would be talking to them about obtaining the rights to actually cover those songs. And the people who wrote the songs, the songwriters, they have what you call a publishing deal with the publishing companies. And what they do is they will administer these songs, and they will try to get placement for you, and they take a cut. Usually anywhere between 30 to 50%, depending on how, depending on your negotiation power, and depending, whether you're an artist of certain like caliber or not. Usually new artists will get like maybe 50%. So like from back in the days, this is very interesting. So from back in the days, the publishing companies has been around for ages. Publishing is known to be the most sustainable business within the music industry. This is very interesting, because throughout the years, there's people are always working with original music, right? So, but from back in the days, they would be publishing what you would see back in the days as sheet music. Right now, we might not be buying books that are, right now we might not be buying songbooks anymore, but we'll be downloading them, while other types of companies may be dying due to technology, due to the changing technology. Publishing companies always remain from like back in the day and age, because it we're always constantly working with IP, and this is the only intellectual property that is kind of like that is constantly being monetized within the music industry. There's sheet music, and there's songbook, and then radio, vinyl, cassette, CDs. Now CD is dying, but then you're still working with publishing companies because they're like streaming companies also have to work with them. So with these rights, so how does this work really? So technically you obtain, when you're actually creating, we're actually creating the work for you as an artist. Once the original work is created and is fixed, it is fixed in any tangible medium of expression, meaning that if you record it onto like a format, like if you record it onto, you know, a CD back in the days, now that you put it on any certain format and there's a date on that. This is very interesting, but that is the date that original piece become yours. So I have an interesting story to tell you about this. So back in the days, like especially like in Thailand, not many people back in the day and age, they're not aware of, you know, what constitutes their own. A lot of time they sign their rights away. But a very simple way back in the days to protect the rights to your music is to write the music, write the lyrics, write the chords, and put it on a sheet of music, put it in an envelope, and mail it to yourself and stamp it and have it enclosed. That day, that is when usually there's a lot of time when people start to claim, but people copying, you know, the songs, like, oh, that song, I wrote that song, but then somebody copied me, and they would be going to court and fighting about that. But usually if you have that letter, and then you can prove it's yours, because if it's a sealed envelope and it's stamped, then you know that it's from that day, and then you know that you wrote it before the other person or whatsoever. I always love that story. And we really do that back in the days. Of course, nobody does that anymore. So let's go. So let's go back to, if you were to use your piece of music, if you want to use a piece of music for a different format, you would have to be paying what you would call sync licensing fee. You pay this when you want to create like a derivative work based on the composition. So for example, if someone wants to use a composition as a part of any other type of content, whether it's a TV show, a movie, an ad, or radio show, you know, they need to get the permission from the copyright owner. And this process generally called sync licensing, and you're basically paying a sync fee. When it comes to using the master's recording, using the actual master recording for anything, let's say for an episode in a TV series, usually you have to clear a lot of rights, because when you're clearing rights, like composition rights, you're basically just paying the songwriter, right? It's not that hard. You're covering the songs. You're basically just dealing with the actual composition itself. But if you want to use a master recording, for example, if you're a YouTube content creator and you want to like use a song, that's a really bad example because YouTube made that really easy for you. But if you're making a movie, and you need to go directly, you want that song to be placed in your independent film, you need to deal with this. So you want to use that song as is, you want to use the master recording, you'd have to be paying a lot of people, because there's a lot of people that's involved in that music, right? So there's the artist that's involved, there's the side artist, you know, they're like the actual songwriter that you have to deal with, you know, like the splits and everything. So what are splits? There are different types of splits. So if then there's an artist that's performing on that piece, on that recording, there's a main artist and there's a side artist. For example, if Beyonce is recording but then it's featuring Kendrick, then obviously, you know, depending on how the artist and the side artist deal this, you're gonna have to be contacting and paying like everyone based on their splits. There's also the example of, you know, that they're also like the sample, like, so if you're sampling, that's all a different scenario. That happens when an artist takes a part of a different song and use it for a new master's recording. For example, if that piece of music is sampling, for example, if you're listening to a master's recording done by a new DJ, but the DJ is actually sampling like Louis Armstrong's like trumpet track, then you would have to be clearing the track too. Like you'd have to clear the rights with the DJ, and then you have to clear the rights with, you know, with the you have to clear the sample as well. And so this is where it gets really complicated. And then I have a breakdown later, so you can take a look at how splits work. But that's basically what it is. Going back to a little bit of the publishing companies, because we're focusing on publishing right now. There are different types of publishing companies. As said, there are major publishing companies. Those are the companies that are sort of like started and being operated by the major labels, you know. So like, for example, Warner Chappelle is under Warner Music. Major affiliated. So these are like independent. These are independent publishing companies, but they have deals with majors to handle their licensing administration. And then there's independent publishing companies. These publishing companies, they handle their own administration in-house with the aid of, you know, with the majors, but like they're basically like they're independent companies. And then there are, of course, the rare case that is like the writer publisher publishing companies. These usually are kind of like started and operated by writers. For example, like in Thailand, for example, everybody must be familiar with Patamapongs. He's a prominent songwriter here. So someone like Patamapongs, he has written hundreds of songs, hundreds of popular songs. So the library is so huge that it's worth it for him to have his own publishing company. You know, in a case like that, it almost makes more sense for the artist to actually run their own publishing company. They handle their own publishing. You know, if like, it makes more sense because, you know, when it's more fluid, you know, you have control. But usually if you're a new artist, you'd be dealing with either a major or like major affiliated or other independent publishing companies. And like when you choose them, usually you choose them based on their expertise. For example, if you write songwriter, you probably don't want to, and you want your song to be used in film and you want placement for your songs, you probably don't want to be like having like a publishing deal with like a publishing company that specializes in country music, you know, because it doesn't make sense. They're going to try to place you, their connections is within the country music genre, so they won't have the proper connection to place your music there. So choosing the right publishers is very important for songwriters. It's not about being big or small, but it's more or less about being like specialized and whether or not they really understand your music. That's the most important part. How do they make money? They basically represent your music. They're like agencies, right? So they make money through licensing fee and royalties. So in terms of ownership, they will have, usually when they deal with writers, they will sign like an extended, let's say like a 5-year representation or like a 3-year representation contract. They will represent your music for that period of time. And for that period of time, they will hold like certain percentage of stake in your in that piece of music that you wrote. So for because they're representing you, they're basically like your agent, right? For your composition. They will work hard to place your music because that is how they make money. You can incentivize them, you know, give them a lot of cut if you're a new artist in order to make sure that you're getting prioritized and being placed in, you know, in a setting that you want, in a new movie, in a new series, a new TV show, a new game show. Incentivizing, and like if you're a new artist, this can be really what really make you, you know, as a writer. If you're famous, you'll have more negotiation power. Publishers usually will just like come to you and be like, I will take just 10%. Can we please represent you? Obviously, because your song is already like kind of like in demand. So that is how it works. A good relationship always help in a setting like this. So let's talk a little bit about streaming, because streaming is like sort of like we're no longer, buying or like selling CDs, but like how you listen to your music right now is most likely through streamings. This is like a really interesting stat, because I feel like everybody that I've talked to as a listener and like as a fan of artists and their music, they always just, they choose the most obviously like popular form of, most popular platform to listen to the music. But for artists, because I coach a lot of artists, I mentor a lot of artists, and so I deal with this, and I know that this is a really interesting chart. This is basically who pays best, right? And from this graph, you can see that YouTube pays the least. Obviously, the most popular platform pays artists the least, and that goes up. And I don't know how many of you are very familiar with Tidal, but Tidal is not very popular, but they're known for, like their quality, the stream quality, high fidelity, high definition audio. They pay really well. And a lot of the times, like artists who are on Tidal, maybe you're curious about why they're promoting like their music on a certain platform more than others. It is because they get paid better on certain platforms, and the difference can be huge. Like here is some so to put into perspective, Apple Music also pays you a lot more, pays you significantly more than YouTube. This is interesting. So a million stream on YouTube. Of course, this is like plus or minus, right? Depends on the region. So different region also has like slight differences in, how they pay the artists back their royalties. A million stream on YouTube pays $600 to $700. A million stream on Spotify pays you about $4,000. A million stream on Apple Music will pay you $7,000. So that's huge difference. So I mean, I would like to take this time to encourage you that, definitely support the platform that pays artists properly, compensate them. If you're going to listen to them for a long period of time, choosing the platform that fairly compensate artists, that generously compensate artists, you will be able to support, your favorite artists that way. Okay, this is really interesting. So this is an allocation of licensing fees. So can you guys see this? This is too small. I know it's really tiny, but you don't have to be able to see the right side, but basically that's an actual credit. Is an actual credit from the song called On the Sunny Side of the Streets, from Duets to the Bass Performance album. So basically on the credit, if you're working, so I want you to wear like a hat of a music supervisor for a second. What does music supervisors do? Basically, we talked about how if you want to use like certain, like if you want to put certain, like songs on your independent film or whatever, there's a position that does that. There's like a job position that does this for you, and that's the music supervisor. This is called music supervision. So a music supervisor, if you're a director, you would hire a music supervisor to place the songs within, in your movies or like short film, your film for you. What this person does is they will go and clear all the rights for you. For example, if you want to use this song called On the Sunny Side of the Street, as you can see, you're going to have your music supervisor. You have to go in and really take a look at who's the composer, who's the publisher, who's the artist. Is there any side artists? And those would be like all the rights that you have to clear. From this credit, I'm going to attempt to zoom in. I don't know if it's possible. No, it's not possible. So if you take a look closely at this, you can see that there are two composers. There are two composers and there are three publishers. I'm looking at it closely. If you're on Zoom, you can probably zoom in. It is published by three publishers. I can see it. There's EMI, April Music, there's Cotton Club Publishing, and there's Shapiro. So ASCAP. So those are the three publishers. And there are two composers involved with this song. There's Jimmy McHugh, Dorothy Fields. Lyrics is also by, okay, so lyrics is by Jimmy McHugh. And okay, so they co-write. So both Dorothy Field and Jimmy McHugh, they co-write this song. So two composers. Okay. And then below that, right below that is the performer, that's bold. So it is performed by Tony Bennett and Willie Nelson. And you can see that mainly when it's stated this way, it means that the main artist is Tony Bennett and the side artist is Willie Nelson. You can see that. So I've listed that out onto the right. And then right below that is the arranger. Arranger does not get a cut, sadly, but they don't. It's really sad. And right under that, they're the musicians that played on the track. They don't get cuts either. Usually musicians who come into the studio and record these songs for the artist, they get paid for their session. They're session players. So they just get paid, but they don't have any ownership in the song, right? But the song will give them credit. So these are all the long list is the list of the musician played on the record. So piano, drums, guitar, alto, tenor, baritone, saxophone, whatever, all that long list. And there's the producer. Sometimes producer get a cut. We'll get into that, but it's not listed out here. Usually a producer will get a cut within the artist's cut. If the producer is a big name, they'll get a cut from the artist. But we'll not talk about that here because that's like kind of like their own personal arrangement and relationship. Then it's producer, director, blah, 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 down. Okay, we're done. And then where is it recorded? Usually this is how credits are laid out. This recorded at Bennett Studios. Okay, done. So how do you pay for this song really? So let's say usually let's say you have a budget, like I'm just like putting this on here as like a number, an easy number to work with. So you see the breakdown easily. So basically if you're gonna license this song for $100,000, you go in and you take a look at who owns the composition rights and then who owns the master rights, right? We talked about this. So who owns the composition right? That's the publisher. So that's the little tree that's like broken out. So publisher, usually 50-50. So publisher gets 50. And then the M right there is the master. So you need to clear the rights for the song, and you need to clear the rights for the master recording, right? So let's look at the publishing. So you split your budget into half. So publishing is 3%, so that's 50,000. You have to pay the composer, and then depending on how the composer are they doing like 50-50 split between the two composers? That depends on the arrangement. But let's say in this case they split it half. So then you would be paying Jimmy McHugh $25K, and then you'll be paying Dorothy Field, the other composer, $25K. So that's what they get. Of course, you would actually be paying the publisher, and depending on what the publisher takes, the composer will take the rest. You know, I didn't put it on here, but it depends on on the relationship between the publisher and the songwriter and what the cut. You know, maybe the publisher will keep half, maybe the publisher will keep only 25%, and then the remaining will go and be split in half between the two composers. And let's come down and take a look at the master's portion. So for the master's, right, let's see, there's a remaining $50,000 to be paid to the people who created this song. We're gonna deal with now the artists who actually performing the song, right? So the people who perform on this track is Tony Bennett and Willie Nelson, you know, as artists and side artists. They're obviously, we're going to be represented by label, right? So let's see how this goes. So 50,000 is going to be split. In this case, let's assume I have like a little note, right? The little red disclaimer at the very bottom. I put that there. So just for our purpose, so you know that if you zoom, you'll see side artists split 50-50. Tony Bennett artist and label split is 60-40. Of course, there are those splits, but this is just for learning purposes. And Willie Nelson's appear as a courtesy of Sony Music Nashville. So Willie Nelson is represented, right? Is represented by his label as well. So once we have that remaining 50,000, it's split between the artist and side artist 50-50. Okay, so now at least we know that that Tony Bennett and his label will get 25K, Willie Nelson and his label will get 25K. And then because Tony Bennett and his label has a 60-40 split deal, Tony Bennett will be getting 15,000, and then his label will be getting 10,000. And then with Willie Nelson and his label, Sony Music Nashville, they're having like a 50-50 split. So Willie will be getting $12,500, and then his label, Sony Music Nashville, will get the same. So that's basically how you think about how you would be paying each people who is involved with the recording. I have another example. This is really small too, probably. This is very complicated, but we do have time, so we're going to go over. Up until this point, do you guys have any questions? I mean, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to cover those, or I can give more example. This is something a little bit more complicated example. Do you guys have any questions?
Okay, okay, I'm back. Actually, Ajahn, we have a lot of questions today, actually.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
I did not look at the chat. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Okay,
I did not see the chat at
facilitate.
all. Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I understand. Okay, let's start with the first question. How different
Okay,
does
perfect.
one song have to be from another one before being able to copyright it?
Ooh, this is a very good question. There are definitely guidelines on that. I'm not a legal person, but there are guidelines to that, and there are resources that you should that you can find out. I would think that I have heard, and please don't quote me on this. Like I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an entertainment lawyer, but there needs to be subtle differences in the melody. You know, when the melody, what I do know is that it should not be a complete duplicate for how many musical bars. And there's like a limit to that. So if it's the same for however consecutive bars, then it's considered like it is considered copying, right? So then you would have some problem with that. There's the obviously that is the melody part. You know, you have two songs having the same melody, even though it's the different lyrics, it's still the same song. You know, so there would be a problem with that. There's the limit to how similar it can be when it comes to melody. Harmony, the people don't usually deal with. So if you use the same, for example, if you use the same chords, I know some songs that share the exact same chord progression. People don't copyright chord progressions. So like, you know, like a simple progression like 1-6-2-5-1 is used on so many different songs in the world with different melodies. People don't copyright those. People usually copyright the lyrics, and people copyright the melody, right? So if the lyrics is the same, then there's a problem too. I think people notice lyrics more, I guess, because it's something that you hear, that you really see it. But with melody, I think that you have to really dig down as to how many bars it is like a complete duplicate of an existing song, right? I'm like, the thing is, there are so many songs in this world that are super similar. And in the past, I'm sure people really exploited the fact that not every song is known to everyone. And like there wasn't YouTube, you know, back in the days, I felt like there were more music that sounds similar back then. But right now we are so exposed and everything is so accessible, and, you know, we can hear anything, anytime. The music is becoming more and more global. So I think that is becoming more difficult for people who are looking to exploit. But yeah, that would be my answer. Definitely certain bars. Yeah.
Okay. Next question will come from Dr. Sally. Okay. With regard to licensing
perfect.
composition, Do artists ever have any control over the use of their composition, or does the publishing company have full control?
When you mean control, do you mean control over the management or control over the writing?
I mean control over who they will license it to. For example, if I was a songwriter and somebody wanted to license my composition to Donald Trump, would I be able to refuse that?
I see. Usually you will. So usually it's like sort of like they will, for example, if you completely, I think that is a part in the contract that usually they will state that in the contract, right? So for example, if you're a composer of certain power, you can have that in your contract, and you will say that I have the final say in who I decide whether, like it will be licensed to. Usually sometimes publishing companies will even prevent that. Like not prevent that, but more like they will try to protect their, their revenue stream. Of course, they want to license it to whoever pays the most, but like not everyone's interest is money, right? For example, like if you don't want to license your piece of music to like Donald Trump's short film, no matter how much it pays, you're not going to want it, right? But the publishing company may want it because it pays a lot, right? So that is something that, for example, if the publisher comes into a situation like that, usually they will try to negotiate with you and put certain things on the contract. Like they need to have, for example, they may need to have like certain, if certain offers are proposed to you, you can reject only this many offers, or you should have to take this many and stuff like that. Those are kind of like the nitty-gritty detail that you're gonna have to negotiate with the publisher, and you will have more negotiation power if you are like, for example, David Foster. And yeah, something like that. Does that answer your question?
Okay, is there anything comparable to an open source software in the music industry?
That's a very good question. In terms of like you mean like any purpose, like for any purpose in the music industry, like
Will some,
like in terms of writing or yeah.
Let's say I'm a composer, okay, and I decide that I write a song, and I don't want to go with a label. I basically want to say this song is free. Anyone who wants to, let's say anyone who wants to perform this song can do so. Let's say open source software would include being able to modify the song, but that I think maybe most, but me not. But let's just look at performance, okay? So could I say anybody who wants to can perform this song? I mean, and not can I say it? Obviously I can. The question is that a common thing, or is that pretty uncommon?
I think when it comes to open source, it means that the platform is also open to being developed, right? That's from my understanding. Like for me, like am I understanding this right? Like, but because of like, for example, there are companies out there where they would be monetizing stems. So this is not on the slide, but so when you record a piece of music, there'll be different tracks, right? So like I record a song, there's a guitar track, there's a drums track, there's a bass track, and there's a vocal track, right? And that's like all the tracks are in there. And usually, and there is a company, like there are companies that will like ask you to write these songs, like more like, they're like I say, I write a song that is more like jingles, like you can put into any videos that are kind of like more like general purpose sort of music. I mean, I would say like elevator music, if that makes it, like if that helps you. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like the songs are like standard progression, can be placed anywhere, anyone can use it. I can just put this, like a background music within any video, anyone can use it. So there are people who would make full living doing this, I don't know. I guess it's like, it could be like close to free, or like it could be like really cheap, but then like someone is always monetizing it. Like I have not seen it. Like, so for example, there's like a platform where you can put these things up, and like of course, like whether or not you can get it for free depends on whether the platform has like a certain promotion, like a free trial, you can like download it and like something like that. you know,
So,
like
so basically it's pretty,
platform is always monetizing it.
so it's pretty rare then to be able to.
It's rare.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Okay.
I mean, I think that there are definitely people out there who would just do this, like maybe like put the music on like Vimeo and then like or YouTube and just like really allowing people to use it. But usually like people don't really, I don't know many people who would do that. Like many people who I know people who would do that and just put it up on streaming platforms. And obviously when you stream, you can just stream it, but then they're still monetizing it, you know, through streams as passive income. I don't, I think it's quite rare.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Of course.
Okay. Should we move to the next question or? Okay. Okay. One can find almost any song on YouTube. What is the legal status of these videos? Do publishing companies and or music labels ever try to prosecute people who post illegal copies?
Absolutely, they do it all the time. They're getting so good at it too. So like there are different parts of it. I think that it's harder to, it's still harder to prosecute people who cover your songs, you know, because like how can you possibly do that if the artist is not popular? Then you just won't see it, but it doesn't mean that it's not there, right? What usually can be done pretty easily now is if you're like Lady Gaga, you're obviously famous and you have a famous song, usually somebody of artist status and who will have their original composition would have what they call a content. YouTube have this this technology, this content ID technology. So basically they're like it's like a fingerprint of like the song. Like, you know, songs are like, you know, like all these like different audio waves. They're basically like IDing those. So every song has their own like ID. So usually the people who would be like doing this are the, you know, obviously the people who manage the song. So like, for example, record label will be working with YouTube and they're like, okay, I want to make sure that there's like ID on these songs because they're under our management and we want to make sure the artist is compensated properly and that we do too, you know, that sort of thing. It's kind of done by the record label who manage the master recording, right? So for example, now let's say I'm like a independent, I'm like just like an independent content creator. I just go take videos and I want to put those videos on YouTube, but I don't want the sound. I want to put this music, I want to put Lady Gaga's music on the video, and like a basic video of like my version of Lady Gaga's music, for example. I would put it on and I would get a notification right away that this song is protected. And whenever music or video, whenever the video that's accompanied by the music is played or streamed on YouTube by anyone in the world, or whatever stream that is, the people who will be compensated would be the label and not me.
Oh, really? So that, yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So if there's an illegal copy,
because I'm using their songs,
and that happens automatically. That's I didn't know that at all. Because I mean, there's so many.
Automatic now.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, thank you.
It's very yeah, and it's interesting as well that they can choose to also place ad without your consent. So it's your video, you put it on, but then the only, like if they're monetizing, if the label and the artist who owns and manage the song choose to monetize through ads will automatically appear. I mean, if you're not using YouTube Premium, of course, if you're using like free tier YouTube, you will have ads. So that's when you get ads, like when they're shooting ads, they're putting ads on a company to monetize that song that is on your iPhone video that is not protected, basically. And you make a lot of money from ads. Okay, let's see what is next.
This question comes from our student Matt. Okay, if a song is initially copyright free and a bunch of people use it for other stuff like in movies and games, but the song becomes copyrighted later on, will everyone who used the song earlier be required to remove the song until they gain proper licensing?
This is a very good question. So basically, so if you're a composer, you wrote a song, the song is obviously yours. You have to, and then let's say people get their hands on the song for whatever reason, but you never publicize the song, right? So nobody knows that it's your song, right? If that happens and you cannot prove that it's yours, then you can't go claim that it's yours because you have no proof, right? So you actually have to, there's a process, you do have to copyright it. A song is copyright free. It really depends. I'm trying to imagine the context of this question. So do you mean that if the song is originally written, but like if I wrote a song, but I didn't mean to monetize it earlier, right? Like I'm just like, I wrote it, I put it somewhere, I have a proof, like it's in this envelope, I wrote it. And then for the first year, I decided to like leave it and then I don't touch it. And then like somebody is using it for whatever, like in movies and games. And then I come out like a year later and have proof. And I said that this is my song, I want it removed. You would have to go fight in court. You know, you have to go prove that it's yours.
I meant like initially the artist said that so it's copyright free, and then afterwards they change their minds and make it like no longer copyright free.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, you're gonna have to like go defend your rights that you actually wrote it in court. And so I would think that for a situation like this is quite rare. Like usually, like if someone gets a hand on your music without you publicizing it, I mean, imagine the scenario, go through the scenario with me. If you wrote a song and you're just like, it's just a dumb song, for example, like I don't mean to monetize this. And then like your friend who makes a game, like wants to use it for his game. And then you guys talk, obviously you're talking to him. You're gonna have to hand him the song, right? Go through this with me. And the guy and the developer is like, okay, great, I'm gonna use it. And then he used it and the game becomes popular. Then you're gonna have to talk to each other again. Like it's a very personal negotiation because this is something that was not negotiated from the get-go. So you're gonna have to, it requires a lot, like it's more personal than it is, like it's more vague than you would think it is. Like you're gonna have to go and talk to him, and of course it's going to be not to your benefit because he was already using it. Like you let him use it, there was no way to sue him because there's nothing on paper that says that he cannot use it, right? So what you can do is first proof that it's yours. Have proof that it's yours, that you had it way before he released it, right? And then work out the compensation later, which is going to be something that really depends on like a lot of the context that's kind of surrounding the situation. But you're gonna have to work it out in court later. Required to remove or not is going to be dictated, of course, later after the decision.
Okay. For the next question, how consistent are these sort of relationships and split worldwide? For instance, do things work pretty much the same in Thailand?
Let me see. How consistent are these relationships splits worldwide? Yes, it's very consistent. Quite consistent. I would say 80%. 80-90%. What the main differences between, let's say, and I'm not gonna try to speak for the rest of the world because I'm familiar with the US and Thailand. So one of the main difference that's probably there would be just like percentage, you know, that would just be it. But like all these entities are very universal. It's just maybe we have like a different standard of paying artists, their record labels have like a standard split. You know, here I know for sure with new artists it's like 60-40. Like new on average, new artists don't really get that much, you know. And also it changes over time, because back in the days, record labels can actually monetize much more from the master, you know, because when you're actually back in the days when you were able to monetize from physical copies, you make so much more, right? But like streaming, when it becomes like, you know, when the world is sort of like going to the streaming sort of direction, for each stream you get paid very little. So you have to be really, really big name to actually monetize anything at all, to make anything at all from a song, right? So the model has shifted quite a bit. Artists now these days make most of their money from live shows and not the actual recordings, right? But they now treat the recording as like a collateral, like a marketing tool to make sure that their shows get booked and they can tour. But back in the days, if you're just a recording artist, you're basically can just sell records. So because labels can no longer make that sort of revenue from just one format, the split has changed. They're getting more splits from live shows, and they maybe not want that much split from the recording, for example. You know, so like the negotiation process has really shifted depending on where the money is, like where the money is going, that sort of thing. But entities are quite consistent.
Okay.
One more thing. Let me add one more thing.
Okay.
In the States now, most recently, they're starting to officially recognize producers and mixing engineer as two additional entities. And this is recent, only in the past 2 years. I think like because usually like they'll only recognize the creative entities. And it was known that the creative entities, the people who have creative say in the recording, are like the performer and the writer. But actually, producer and mix engineers has a lot to do with the creativity of the song too. So they're recognizing that in the US, but they're not recognizing it here yet. It may be a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Our last question, Ajahn. If a song is generated by an AI, who owns the copyright?
That's a very good question. I am no AI expert. Does Dr. Sally know that? I don't know.
That's not my question. That's Matt's question. But it's a great question.
I know, and I'm asking you.
Oh, do I know? I don't. My feeling is that I'm sorry. I don't think that has been established yet. I think that is still a subject of a lot of discussion among legal experts. And there's even the question of whether a song or any other artistic expression that's created by an AI can be copyrighted at all. In other words, so I mean, I don't think that's been decided yet. I think there's a lot of issues about that. And it kind of depends on whether you think that AI is really intelligence, or whether you think AI is just rehashing whatever it's been fed in its training set. So there's a sort of a philosophical underpinning to that decision.
I have like a extension of question of that to you, Dr. Sally. I wonder, so for an AI, for an AI to model, to create or generate melodies, like someone is gonna have to actually build that, right? You're gonna have to, it's like you have to actually build that, and just that person claim everything that's created by the AI theirs? How does that?
I have seen that argument, but then I've also seen the alternative argument that, that the AI can exercise creativity, because it's as I understand the technology, the current state of technology, it's certainly not the case that the person who creates the model dictates what the AI system is going to create. Okay, so the AI systems, they suck up a lot of examples in whatever medium we're talking about, if we're talking about painting, if we're talking about music, and then abstract patterns from those examples, and then apply those patterns to generate, you know, totally new expressions, but they are not totally new in the sense that they have some of the characteristics they have the patterns. So it's a very difficult question, and worth discussing, I think, in some of our classes, because there's no easy answer. And I mean, it's even more, I don't know if it's even more, but I'm very interested in the natural language processing examples, because now things like GPT-3 and its follow-ons are able to write stories. And most of the time, the stories sound pretty reasonable, although sometimes they're ridiculous and make no sense, which is one sort of indication that really these models don't, quote, understand. But there are, I am sure, people who are using these models to generate stories and publishing them on Amazon. Because, you know, you self-publish on Amazon, and you get, you know, the more you publish, the more revenue you get. And the people who are, I mean, the more you publish, the higher Amazon's rank will push you up, and you'll get seen more. So, I mean, that worries me a lot, because I'm one of these people who believes that writers are, you know, human writers have something really unique to contribute. So it's very difficult, and I'm really glad you brought that up, Matt. It's a great question, and probably a good one to end on.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, I guess we're out of time now, right? We're coming to the end. So no Kahoot. You know, I've designed like I had like a Kahoot game. I'm just like, oh, we're gonna play. We're out of time, but maybe next time.
Thank you so much. It was really, really interesting.
Thank you. No, thank you guys for having me. And yeah, I hope it was, you know, at least knowledgeable. It was really short, so I didn't really go down into details. It gets really complex, you know, but like it's just, or I think it's I hope it was a good overview.
I think that even the example that you gave us, even without explaining the one that you have up now, makes it clear that it is a really complicated situation. And I don't think most people, including myself, I don't think most people are really aware of how it works. So it's very enlightening.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Ajahn, it's such an honor to have you like give us a talk today. Thank you so much for today, Ajahn Natasha Patamapongs.
Of course, anytime. You guys have a great day and enjoy your afternoon. And thank you. See you guys soon.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Let's move to the last session. Okay, can I share my screen? Okay. Okay. Why is that blue? Okay. For our info session, you can ask us anything. Do you have any question about our program? Get all your answers here. Our info session is ready to give you our information, whether required documents, how to complete the application, information about the program, or the pathway to their higher education and future career. Book your slot now and see us every Wednesday from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. And for our next episode, you will meet Prof. Dr. Suksan Panishpapipun, our adjunct faculty member at CMKL University. He will give us a talk in the topic of mobile sensing approach to acquiring traffic information. Please stay tuned. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this talk and see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you.